Hello, everyone. Glad to be back. As always, my name is Nick Chavez from Chavez and Valko, your key to immigration solutions, and here to provide you an update on things that have been swirling around in the immigration world. Not too many updates this time around, but every 2 weeks or so, we do these wrap-up shows that summarize the major news or headlines that relate to immigration law, something that we are very passionate about, and we try to make it understandable because let's face it, immigration law is not always straightforward. It could get a bit complicated at times. So we're here with y'all today to help you out with that. My law partner, Martin Valko, my usual partner in crime, is not with us today, but I have a very awesome guest with us, Ann Miller. She is a senior managing attorney at our firm with years and years of immigration law experience, most of it in California. But not only does she have experience as an immigration lawyer, but she also was an immigration paralegal before she went to law school. So that's very interesting. Hi, Ann. Nice of you to join us here today. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for joining us. Ann and I share a common love for Disney World, and we're always exchanging tips on how to best take the perfect trip out there. And that's why I'm surprised, and that I'm not seeing a Baby Yoda in your background. I'm not seeing any Disney World stuff, but I do see some doodles. Are those from your kids?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Of course.
And I mean, you got these kind of artists, you got to display it.
Oh yeah, of course. And I say that because, well, we think, kids, duh, right? But you'd be surprised. I still doodle.
I love to color actually. It's really good with the stress too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, they have those coloring books for adults now, and it's for those designs. And do you have one of those?
Yeah, I've got a Game of Thrones one,
Oh, do you?
and I have one that is like different cities and towns, like Seattle one. I think I've got.
Huh. That's interesting. And does it help?
It definitely helps, and plus sometimes I steal my kids' coloring books. The dinosaur ones are fun to color.
Yeah, yeah. And certainly you need that, Anne, because you're in the trenches, as they say. I mean, you handle a lot of clients that are facing deportation. You're frequently at immigration court, at USCIS, and so I think that's very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, our clients are really suffering right now because of the long processing times
Yep.
that immigration is doing, and I feel their pain, and we're doing our best to help, uh, make things easier for them. But it is stressful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're here to help whatever we can do to make it less stressful. Um,
Absolutely.
Well, let's get started. And folks, as a reminder, if you have a question about any of these topics or about immigration, please feel free to shoot us a message. We'll be glad to answer your question live or even later. So, Ann, with the big news this week was that the Biden administration is finally going to put at rest this Trump era policy about returning migrants back to Mexico while they await their removal hearing or their immigration court hearing. And this was known as the Migrant Protection Protocol, but also known as the Remain in Mexico policy. And this was created during the Trump administration, but this week, a district court finally said, we're going to go ahead and lift that permanent injunction on the directive that was supposed to end Remain in Mexico policy back last year in August. So we're really, really happy about that. If you recall, this was a huge issue in the courts that eventually made its way up to the Supreme Court, who last month agreed with the Biden administration in saying that, look, you can't really force in the executive branch, you can't really force an agency to use a particular tool, or in this case, the policy, the MPP, as a way to control immigration, because the law clearly gives the agency, the department, the discretion, whether it wants to use it or not. That depends on the department, and the courts, judges can't force them to do that because the law doesn't require that the department apply this tool or provision to control immigration. So really, this is good. It's a very good decision. This means that the department can decide for itself whether it wants to use this tool later in the future based on resources, or not use it at all due to humanitarian issues, as we've seen. What are your thoughts, Anne?
Well, I mean, the program, I thought, using the word protection was very ironic because the folks were stuck in tent cities, very vulnerable, and there was crime happening upon these refugees every day. And they were appearing in court. They were doing what they needed to do, but these courts were tent city courts. They were not, there was no resources for them. And it's very inhumane. And the Biden administration is finally going to be able to bring an end to it. And these applicants are going to be allowed to come in. There's going to be a process to try and make it more orderly, but they're going to be allowed to come in and pursue removal, pursue their asylum case in removal proceedings in immigration court. And statistically, these folks do appear for their hearings because they have a reason to pursue it. If they've got the support of the community, if they are given the tools to appear in court, they're going to do it. And it's refreshing to see that all these folks are going to have their day in court.
Yeah, you mentioned something really important there, really key about access, being represented, having somebody on your side to help you. And one of the concerns with this policy is that not only did it subject individuals to danger. I mean, Mexico, there's some areas there that are incredibly violent and dangerous, but the individuals were out there waiting as they waited for their hearing, but without the help or assistance of an attorney, which is important. And there's some sort of a statistic that said that the individuals that were outside, it had 7% of them were represented, as opposed to 63% that were already here in the United States, that were more likely to get an attorney. And if they're going to have access, they're more likely to show up to court. So it made sense. But not only that, but a lot of individuals, well, we've heard reports of people being targeted by drug traffickers.
Yes.
In some of these regions where they have to wait. I mean, you're coming from a country seeking protection, escaping a bad situation, only to get yourself into a worse situation in some cases. So this tool is available. The law says that if the government wants to send individuals to a contiguous territory, either Canada or Mexico, it could. And then there's been some litigation as to what type of person can be sent. And that was an argument that several smart immigration lawyers made, that asylum seekers shouldn't even be clumped into that group of people that you can send to Mexico, because of the nature of their case, they're applying for protection, and you can't put them in a worse situation.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that we don't have to have that discussion further, that they're pulling the plug. It's a shame that it took since the Supreme Court decision, maybe a month or so, but
yeah.
Staying along with positive news, we have talked frequently about parolees and individuals, refugees who are coming from bad situations here. Ukraine, under a program, they are allowed to apply for what's called parole, and this is essentially it's your ticket here in the United States, to stay here on a temporary basis. There is a program for Ukrainians, United for Ukraine, but they came along with a lot of restrictions and a lot of requirements, a lot of information, and a lot of that you can find on our website and on our channel. But the latest there is that they are requiring COVID-19 vaccinations, or at least asking that the beneficiaries who are aged 6 months and older have some sort of attestation. That's what they call it. Sometimes some sort of sworn statement that they've received their COVID-19 vaccinations, with some exceptions. Do you want anything to add about this, Anne?
Certainly, yeah. When it comes to the COVID vaccine, the previous policy for United for Ukraine was that if the child was 5 years old or older, needed to have the attestation. But now, because the COVID vaccine has been approved for younger, they're now shifting the requirement to basically the 6 months or older. The attestation is the requirement to show that, hey, we've got the vaccine. I know a lot of people had to flee and maybe didn't have their little white cards or so. But the attestation allows them to say, yes, we've had that vaccine. And just also a reminder that even though this announcement is particular to the United for Ukraine, but people that are applicants for permanent residence, either at the consulates or adjusting their status here in the U.S., they are required to have that vaccination as well, the COVID vaccine. And visitors to the United States, or people here as entering as non-immigrants by air, they're going to have to show proof that they're vaccinated as well. So it's just kind of a reminder that if anybody's wanting a vacation at Disney World, they're going to need to make sure they've got their proof of their COVID vaccine.
Yeah, and there are just few exceptions, and so there's exceptions for individuals who have a medical issue, and they're known as contraindications, where it's not medically advisable. But if you fall under those exceptions, you should first, at any rate, speak with an immigration lawyer to see how you can go about getting that exception when you're applying for an immigration benefit.
Yeah, and also just as a reminder, U.S. citizens traveling abroad and coming back to the U.S. by air, they don't have to be vaccinated. And permanent residents, people who already have their green cards traveling by air, they don't need to have the vaccine either. But if you have questions about it, definitely consult with an immigration attorney, because the rules have evolved over the last couple of years. And there used to be the requirement that in order to travel by air, you had to have a negative COVID test, right? Well, they got rid of that requirement. So that makes things a little easier for people planning their vacations outside the U.S. And flying back in. But it's always important to, before you travel, check the country conditions for COVID, where you're going, and keep an eye on Department of State's notices about stuff, because, things change. So it's always a good idea to keep a lookout on that before you head over to the airport.
Yeah. And not to get distracted a little bit, not only does it apply to parole applicants, as we've been talking about, Afghan parole applicants and Ukrainian applicants, but also advanced parole applicants. So if you have DACA and you want to apply for advanced parole, which is your travel permit, basically, then it's important to have all that lined up before you head out, right? Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Anne. The other topic that we, on these shows that we talk a lot about legislative proposals and, what's cooking right now, because it seems like it changes, and it does change with the political climate and with other factors. And the latest right now, and this is actually pretty good, there's bipartisan support for the Afghan Adjustment Act.
Yes.
And we're excited about that. And it proposes essentially legal permanent resident status for Afghan refugees, for those who entered the United States with permission, who are paroled between a certain date, I believe it was July 30th, 2021,
Mhm.
up until its enactment. And it's great. I mean, it proposes, I believe, two general categories: those who Afghan nationals who have been paroled in or seeking SIV, the Special Immigrant Visa, because they're supported the U.S. mission in Afghanistan. They appear to be streamlined, meaning it'll be a lot quicker to apply and obtain lawful permanent residence. And then they have another group that doesn't fall in that category, but if they can show that they've lived here in the United States, and I believe it's 2 years of physical presence in the United States, then that would form the basis of then applying for legal permanent resident status. You have anything to add on that?
Oh, I mean, I'm just very happy to see that there's
Yep.
bipartisan support for this. I think a lot of people are upset with how things went down with Afghanistan, and so I'm really hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic that this will pass. You know, obviously, it's just a bill at this point, and things could change, and we have to see how the votes come out. And then once the final bill is sitting on the president's desk, then we can start talking the particulars, because things do change. But I am pleased to see the bipartisanship on this one, and really hoping it will see a good result here.
Another development that we were talking about earlier that we're happy about, we usually, and this, you made a good remark here, good point about we usually don't celebrate failures, but we're so happy that some of these senators failed to add on these anti-immigrant amendments onto the inflation bill that passed, and we're super relieved, because if you all don't know, the inflation bill that was recently passed it had several measures about climate, inflation, and economic incentives and whatnot. Didn't address immigration, but there was a movement by senators who resisted, mainly Republican senators who resisted this legislative push for these good measures, and they wanted, in order for it to pass, they wanted to add on these anti-immigrant amendments. And again, there was discussion about adding amendments to strengthen the use of what was referred as Title 42. Title 42 is a public health law that was used under the Trump era and then continued on under the Biden administration to help control the flow of migration. Basically, people were being returned because of COVID. In a nutshell, that's what it was. It's a public health rule. And so we had these senators try to piggyback or put this on the inflation bill, and that effort failed. So we're really happy about that.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to Title 42, this rider that they could have added, they were trying to codify it. They were trying to continue to use it as a weapon to prevent people from making it to the U.S. and applying for asylum. Millions of people were turned away, refugees, and they weren't, being considered deported. They weren't being considered excluded. They were pretty much just being, turned away. And because they were just constantly being turned away, they were returning back and trying again and keep trying again, and it was inflating the numbers of people being turned away. And it's just a nasty tool. The Biden administration is trying to not use it, which is resulting in litigation. And so these Republicans, mainly Republicans, were trying to add it to the bill so that it could be permanently used for this I think inhumane reason. So I am celebrating that it did not get added. I'm pleased. And just kind of a reminder to everybody, these immigration laws that we are fighting against or trying to comply with, these are all creatures of Congress, and that we need to continue to advocate with our representatives and our senators to make humane and reasonable immigration laws, to fix the holes and the mistakes that are in the Immigration Nationality Act, and that we just need to keep being heard, because Congress is the one that's going to need to fix most of these issues.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I hope that Title 42 will have the same future as the Remain in Mexico policy in terms of ending it. Now, Title 42, it's in the books, just as the Remain in policy. Believe it or not, Remain in Mexico, it's actually part of the law. But just like Remain in Mexico, this is at the discretion of the government. They're not required to use it. They could use it if they need to, but a judge cannot force them to apply it. And that's been the whole political ballgame this year and last year. We've been seeing that. And so we hope that this discussion of using Title 42 hopefully will wane, but we'll see. We're heading toward the elections, which brings me to this next topic. And again, we talk about this. We spoke about this, Martin and I, about the Abbott, Governor Abbott, who's using immigrants as his political pawns, if you will. And with this whole political stunt of busing immigrants to New York, I woke up this morning, had my coffee, and turned on the TV, and there was side by side. I don't think they were addressing each other, but this news station had them comparing their statements. Abbott and then Eric Davis, right? Eric Davis is the mayor of New York. I think that's his name. Mm-hmm. Anyways, on one side, he was talking about how he needs to protect the Texas. The Biden administration is not doing anything. On the other side, it's more of a welcoming perspective. And then at one point, I think there was a soundbite of Abbott saying, "Make my day" or something. But again, we're headed toward the another round of elections, and unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see the end of these types of political antics. Hey, the migrants get a free ride. I mean, but I don't. But it's been reported that the situation there. I mean, the environment in which they're transported is not great. So hopefully somebody looks at that.
Yeah, I doubt they're using limos. No, I mean, but it comes down to, these are human beings with reasons that they're coming here, and to be used as pawns. They're not even being used as pawns. They're being used as props and weapons in this kind of battle. And just remember, these are human beings, and it's just disappointing. But hopefully the migrants that are being moved over to New York, that's where they were heading anyway. So hopefully they benefit from the ride. But this political circus is just disappointing to me on many levels.
Yeah. We do have a question here relating to legislative policies here, and it's from Akif Virani. Thank you for your question. And Akif asks, any news or thoughts on immigration reform or registry date? The registry date was something we spoke about a couple of weeks back, when there was some discussion of reviving this statute that we have, this law that allows individuals who are physically here prior to a certain date, gives them the pathway to become legal permanent residents by sheer fact that they're here in the United States and have been so for a long period of time. And this registry, really, it's been around for a long time, since the 20s, and it's been updated. So individuals who were here prior to a certain date, they can now apply for legal permanent residence, meeting other requirements. It's just not their physical presence. They have to go through a background check, and they have to be, they cannot be disqualified because of crime or for other issues. And so there was some discussion last year about bringing that date. The last time it was updated, wow, it was, I would say it was in the 80s, and it was for individuals who have been here since 1972. So if you were here currently, if you've been here in the United States since, I think, January 1972, and you haven't applied for your green card but want to, this could be your opportunity. But that date, you know, I haven't met a person who's walked in the door who meets that qualifications. I don't know if you have, Ann, but
it was a long time ago when I was still
yeah.
a paralegal. We had a client. It's been a long time.
Yeah, sorry about that. My light always flickers out. But anyways, yeah. So they're talking about moving that date to a future date, and lots of other dates have been tossed around. You have 2010, 2020. It's whatever they want it to be, the registry date. And for, you know, it had some traction last year because, you know, they weren't going to do reform and wholesale reform where they would build new law. Registry is already there. That was the point. They were trying to get passed through the Senate parliamentarian so they can break that filibuster. And the only way they were going to do that is if they weren't going to pass a bill that was profoundly new immigration law.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it did not pass muster. It tried to go through the infrastructure bill, and it got shot down. And there has been, again, a resurgence of that discussion. And where it goes, I don't know. It's hard to say. If I were going to bet, it's going to hit a wall until after the elections. That's what I would think, unless something happens and we get more bipartisan support for legislation. What are your thoughts, Ann?
Oh, I mean, I think it's a great idea, but yeah, with the midterms staring us in the face, I don't see them doing a lot. I mean, I think that was part of the reason why some commentators have said the reason why the legislation this weekend didn't include much pro-immigrant is because of everybody heading into midterms. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I've heard and believed that a lot of times a lame duck session of Congress can generate some good immigration action because they've already passed the elections. Some of them are heading their way out, and they're more willing to step up. But like I said, that's all speculation, and until Congress actually does something, then we can really start making plans.
Yeah. Thank you, Akif, for your question. I appreciate that. All right. So the last topic, of course, everybody wants to know what's going to happen with DACA. Any news yet? We've been monitoring DACA, or the new regulations that they have proposed, that they're ready to go. If you look at the Federal Register, they're under final review. So at any point, they can drop them and we can have new regulations. And the new regulations about DACA really came about from litigation. And I'm not going to go into the weeds about it, but know this, that the new proposal, there are applications that have been filed that were new applications. Essentially, there were applicants that had never filed DACA before. When they put in their DACA request, it was processed. It was basically frozen, suspended after a court order compelling USCIS to stop the processing of new DACA applications. Now, DACA renewals, they weren't affected by this court order, and that's what's currently being litigated. And so from that, USCIS, or I should say the Department of Homeland Security, they went ahead and published these new regulations that would allow individuals to continue on with their DACA applications, their initial DACA applications, and we're waiting. We're still waiting. It could happen next week. You don't know.
Yeah.
We all don't know at this point. But there's not much of a difference between what has been the policy for new that governed new DACA applications than what we see now with these proposed regulations. The requirements to file the DACA, the new DACA, are pretty much the same. There are some differences. They're trying to separate the processing of the DACA application itself and the employment authorization document, make them as kind of bifurcate them and make them a separate process. But there's also this litigation that we're monitoring, Texas versus Biden, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. It seems like there's two trains, and they're going to meet each other at some point.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, I think, is that it's just going to keep going up back up to the Supreme Court. Even once the new regulations come down, that's probably going to go to the Supreme Court as well. But hopefully they'll open the door and allow more people to apply that, either were too young at the time, or have had other reasons why they were unable to apply initially. But as also just as a reminder, those that have DACA, it's always a good idea to kind of investigate DACA advanced parole, because that is available still at this time. It's available. And that advanced parole for DACA recipients, if they have a humanitarian or business reason for them to travel, they can travel on that advanced parole travel document. They can only travel if they have the advanced parole travel document outside the United States, and they're paroled back in, and that gives them that legal entry that opens a lot of options for them to eventually get that path to a green card. So, we always want to encourage people that have DACA now that they, maybe investigate advanced parole for them. Because once the regulations come down, then we'll be able to give everybody a great breakdown of what the requirements are, what's going to happen, what's going on with it. But as of right now, those initials are in a holding pattern.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Anne, for that. And well, folks, that's a wrap. Thank you for watching and for supporting us. And again, if you like what you see, if you like our information, please don't forget to like and subscribe to get the latest on immigration news. And also, Anne, another way to receive news, immigration news, is through our app, Lawpilot Guardian. It's an app that my law partner Martin and we developed it to improve the services that we provide to our clients, but not only to our clients, but the community in general. You can check out our information below or at the description. With this app, you not only receive news, but it has a lot of cool features too. It has an emergency button that you can push in the event of an encounter with ICE or the police, and that's the central feature. It sends an alert to your family or friends, and even your own attorney, anyone you wish to designate to receive alerts. You may do that. They will know the location of the incident, where you were arrested. There's even an audio recording of the encounter, and it contains information about your rights. Knowing your rights is important. It guides you on what you should say in any given situation or encounter with ICE or the police. So please check that out. Well, thank you again, Anne. You did a great job. Thank you for joining us today. Any parting words?
Just I'm going to go get my coloring book.
Okay.
Get my Crayolas.
Awesome. Have a good weekend, everyone. Ciao.
Bye.